Many federal agencies are hated, but there seems to be a special type of hate going towards FEMA. And the plan is to dismantle the agency. It's the same agency that millions of people depend upon when a disaster hits. Why is this happening now? FEMA, created in 1979 under President Carter, is the federal agency that's focused on coordination and providing the money, providing the funding. They're not the boots on the ground people. They're not on the ground dragging people out of the disaster areas. Instead, the first responders do that. The state agencies do that. The National Guard does that. So when is FEMA called? Well, usually for hurricanes, floods, wildfires, or earthquakes. Last year alone, FEMA responded to over 100 disasters. 14,000 people were deployed, and they provided $45 billion to states, communities, and individuals. So when somebody is devastated by one of these natural disasters, FEMA's there. FEMA's there to provide some money. Now, some people are like, well, what about homeowner insurance? Well, first, not everybody owns a home, but homeowner insurance, a lot of times, they won't even cover floods unless you pay a little extra every month. Sometimes they don't even cover wildfires. So FEMA comes in and provides grants for temporary housing, limited personal property replacement, crisis counseling, and low-interest SBA loans. On average, FEMA only provides a few $1,000s per household, but the chances are you live in a county that benefited because 94% of Americans live in a county where FEMA gave them money. So you had some federal money injected into your county, and you know where most of the money goes? It goes to states that deeply support President Donald Trump. Places like Florida, Louisiana, Texas, and the Carolinas. So why would the president and the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, why would they want to gut the agency that has helped their voters the most? Back in January, Trump stood in North Carolina looking at the damage from Hurricane Helene and said, I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away. He called FEMA not good, a disaster. And then in June, he doubled down, telling reporters, we're going to give out less money. But then Texas got hit with some major flooding. Over 120 people lost their lives. And all of a sudden, the president kind of changed his tune. During a visit to Texas, he praised FEMA's response, saying they deployed as fast as anybody's ever seen. His budget director, Russ Vought, even said that FEMA has $13 billion in reserve to help the state of Texas. Now, this seems like a 180, but it's not. A senior White House official admitted that the goal is still to shift disaster response to states. This is with the federal government just handing over the money, just giving the money to the states and letting them deal with it. So FEMA, as we know it today, would cease to exist. So what's wrong with that plan? Doesn't that plan seem like it has some merit? Well, there could be some issues like inequity between states, contradictions of the federal law, and creating problems in national disaster preparedness. This flip-flopping isn't new. When public scrutiny gets escalated, well, you kind of dial back on your position. You don't abandon it, you just kind of dial it back. You know, at this time, FEMA is actually doing something good. It's proving that it's useful. It's proving that it's needed. So you dial back your rhetoric. And as soon as people slowly start to forget all the good that it has done, you just bring it right back out. This isn't just President Trump. This is not a dig on him. This is politics 101. So why does FEMA get so much hate? To understand that, we have to look at several core reasons. Number one, there's a belief in state-centric disaster response. The belief is FEMA's too big, it's too bloated, it's too bureaucratic. Who needs a 20,000 person agency to manage state affairs? Who knows the states better than they know themselves? But this could cause some issues because how do you fund each state? Some states have a high probability of experiencing a tornado, let's say Missouri, Kansas. Well, what are you going to do for funding with them? Do you just retain all the money and as states extend their hand out for more money, you assess it and then make that decision? Then there's conflicts with blue states in FEMA's leadership. President Trump has repeatedly clashed with Democratic governors over COVID, over wildfires, and he also views FEMA as a pocket of resistance in the Department of Homeland Security. And we can't forget last November, a FEMA supervisor in Florida allegedly instructed disaster relief teams to avoid homes displaying Trump signs following Hurricane Milton. The supervisor later defended herself, saying that she was just following orders from above, and she wasn't the only person that did it. There were other supervisors passing that same exact message. That doesn't make it any better. That makes it worse. The whole situation is horrible. What a time to get politics involved when there's lives on the line. You have to do something like this. Now, thankfully, 4 people were fired tied to this incident. The official statement from the fallout was, FEMA has terminated 4 individuals as a result of the agency's disgusting discrimination against Trump supporters in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene and Milton last year. But Republican voters didn't forget. They're still deeply resentful when it comes to this incident, and they're using it as ammunition on why it needs to be dismantled. DHS also implemented a rule that requires the secretary's personal approval for any FEMA contract over $100,000. In the world of disaster response, where things can easily cost billions of dollars, $100,000 is nothing. And this rule slowed down FEMA's response when it comes to the Texas floods. It delayed teams, allegedly, up to 72 hours from being able to deploy to Texas. And it left desperate callers on hold because call center staff could not be hired without the secretary's approval. Here's where things really get wild. They really get crazy. I have a hard time believing a lot of this because we're getting into conspiracy territory now. I never really do that well with conspiracies, but just hang on with me for a second. Since FEMA was founded, it's been the subject of paranoid narratives, especially among white nationalist groups. The big one, the FEMA camps conspiracy. So the claim is that FEMA's disaster relief efforts are really a front for a sinister plot to round up white Christians into camps so globalists, which is a code word often used for Jews, people of color, and other marginalized groups can impose a new world order. Now that sounds like some fringe nonsense. That seems absolutely ridiculous, but there are some MAGA circles that believe it. It's a deeply held belief. And you have militias like the Oath Keepers. They formed vowing to resist these plans, these imaginary plans of rounding up white people. In 2015, the Jade Helm 15 military exercise in Texas sparked a frenzy with social media posts claiming it was a FEMA plot to impose martial law. Fast forward to 2024, and you had Trump imply or suggest that FEMA was paying undocumented immigrants to vote Democrat. Who believes these conspiracy theories? Well, surprisingly, there's a lot of people, right? There's estimates that 15 to 20% of people believe it with all of their heart. And you probably know somebody. There's always that one person. It's a friend or a friend of a friend or your cousin's friend that's just a wild conspiracy theorist. They believe every single one. Why do they do that? Is that a mental condition? Well, there's a few reasons. Number one, it's a desire to feel special or in the know. Social media algorithms are also to blame, and a distrust in authority. So really what we're witnessing is there's several reasons to get rid of FEMA. Doesn't matter which one you pick, FEMA has to go. How long are they going to stand? Is it going to end up being like the education department, where it ends up being a shell? So FEMA will exist as a shell, but really it's going to be gutted. It's going to take an act of Congress to actually completely remove the agency. I don't see that happening this year or next year. Now, in addition to this, we have over 9,000 of the most loyal Trump supporters that are federal employees. They're in the Plum Book. Plum Book has a lot of information. It has salary, it has title, it has agency, and you'd be surprised, some of these salaries, they exceed $200,000 a year, and President Trump loves these type of employees. He can't hire enough of them, and he keeps telling his subordinate leaders to increase their pay. Pay them the max. And these are some pretty high salaries. If you want to know about what's in the Plum Book, how can you get in the Plum Book, what's happening there, if you want to know that, I want you to check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.